Hello, hello, and welcome. I am so excited to be here with you, and I'm very grateful for this platform that connects you and I to new opportunities. And as we create new opportunities, we can change this world to be a better place. Now, my name is Jana Masik. I am the host of this broadcast, Powering Unique You. And here we create encouraging conversations. We want to help you expand your potential. We want to help you achieve more results. And we want you to be a better leader. So today, I am so thrilled. I have a very, very special guest. And as we get to know this amazing guest, I want to see you joining in. I want to see you say hello. Tell me where you're coming from. Tell me what you are excited about this Monday. It's a brand new week, brand new beginning. Let's make this week a wonderful one and win together, right? So this amazing guest is an author. She created phenomenal framework. This framework is 5 imperatives for HR leaders. And a lot of things that we're going to talk about today is going to be tying into those 5 imperatives. She's also leadership influencer and HR expert. She's been in numerous executive roles in HR in different companies. And right now she's created her own company, which is called Business of HR. And she's creating a phenomenal community around that to help HR professionals to go to the next level and become transfer from tactical to strategic thought leaders and business influencers for their companies. I cannot wait to introduce amazing Barbie Winterbottom. Hello, Barbie.
Hi. Well, that's such an introduction. I hope I can live up to that.
It is. You are quite phenomenal. And you know, Barbie, when I came across on LinkedIn your videos and I tuned in and I was hooked from the very minute. I was really hooked because I could sense that you are coming from the years of experience. You are not teaching some type of fluff that you've learned from reading books. You're teaching and you're sharing what you've lived and experienced. So I'm so thrilled to have you today as my very important guest.
Well, thank you. And I am thrilled to be here with you as a very important host. So thank you so much. And I hope you cannot hear the background. I have a cat who is desperate to get into this room, and she's shaking the door and doing everything she can. So hopefully you can't hear that because she's, been kicked out.
Barbie, you know what? Hey, this is a part of live videos, okay? I can tell you, it's good that my kiddos are not scratching to get out of the bedroom where their dad holding him hostage while they're watching a movie, and I give them a bag of candy that they actually want bag to get out. So we all have life around us. And I think our viewers can absolutely relate to that because, hey, this is what we have nowadays. We are working from home, we are live from home, and life is always something unexpected, right?
It is. It certainly is. That's for sure. As we know with our technology challenges today. So
yes, I always
look a little wonky, guys, and I'm using my phone. For some reason, I could not get the audio on my computer to work this morning. So Jana's incredibly gracious with me so far today. So.
You are absolutely fine, Barbie. I think we just have to find ways to figure it out and go with the flow and make things happen. So right. I want to welcome our viewers today. We have some people joining in right now, and very wonderful that we have people coming in. So say hello to us, say how excited you are today. This is going to be a fantastic episode for you. We have Shar, I hope I say your name correctly, saying great. Mimi, my dear friend, saying hello. I'm so excited, Mimi, you are here today. We have Monica saying exciting topic. Monica, this is going to be a great topic. Tune in for you. I think for you because she's in HR and I just had a conversation with her last week.
Oh,
This is going to
wonderful.
be fantastic for you, Monica. Elena is also HR practitioner. She's providing services to other companies. Elena saying hello, Jana and Barbie. Looking forward to this. We are so looking forward to this. Rajat is saying glad to be connected with you on LinkedIn. We have people joining in. John is saying good morning, happy to be here. Richard, we are so excited for you to come here and join and spend this time with us. And we want to give a ton of value to you. We honor your time. We honor you coming and joining. We want a ton of value to you. And today's topic, Barbie, you and I talked about it. I feel very important in this time, especially, right?
Yes.
How to become a thought leader. And more importantly, how do you transition your career from tactical to strategic?
Yep.
And I love this how-to.
Yeah. Well, we are exhibiting the second imperative, right? We adapted. We were agile. We figured it out this morning, right? Instead of becoming frozen and paralyzed, we figured out another solution. So yeah, it's, I've had an amazing career. I've been so fortunate to work with such strong thought leaders. I think long before human resources was even recognized as the strategic arm it is, I was fortunate enough to work with some folks who could see that and instill in me the ability to look around corners and to see beyond what was immediately in front of me. And as I've grown my career and moved up through the ranks, as they say, right? Which I hate that phrase because it creates that caste system mentality. And I don't mean it that way, but the reality is you do move through the ranks, right? And I recognized as I would come into a new team or a new role, I would often be really frustrated, frankly. As you know, Jana, I am pretty transparent and I am extremely authentic in who I am. And I find significant value in that, not only for me, but for listeners as well. Because one of the things that I have committed to doing with my company and with every one of these conversations is to be authentic and to be real. So many of the conversations in the HR space are incredibly lofty and theoretical, and we talk about pie in the sky, and we want this and we want that. And there's a place for that. Absolutely. We have to think that way in order to move things forward. But what I find difficult and what I find many HR practitioners find as a challenge is that we don't take that and then bring it down to what do I need to do today? How can I transform my career, my department, my job right now today? And that's how the 5 imperatives were really born is in my career and my frustration of coming into an HR team or inheriting an HR team or practitioners and finding these big gaps in what was available to skill them up and to help them grow into strategic leaders. And I think throughout my career, I've been brought in kind of as the fixer. And when you're brought in as the fixer, which many of us can relate to, and that's okay, you recognize that there's a reason for that. And when you come in and you've got amazing HR teams with incredibly smart people who want to do the best job possible, but they've never been given training or coaching or development to help them get there. And it became really clear to me in my last job as chief HR officer when I had a few HR business partners who I was pushing into strategic roles, and I give them a tremendous amount of credit. One of them finally said to me, "You're removing all this administrative work. You're removing all these tactical elements. And I hear you say you're doing this because you want me to add strategic value. But I don't know what that means." And she had the courage to say that to me. And that was a light bulb moment. It was, oh my gosh, it's not that they don't want to be strategic. they don't know how. They don't understand what it means in day-to-day lives. I think we make the word strategy so big and intimidating at times because of these conferences we go to and we hear these folks talk about these theories and these strategies, and it's overwhelming. So for me, the 5 imperatives is a way to take some of that and break it into meaningful but actionable thoughts and processes to apply to your day-to-day life.
I love
And
it.
that's kind of the genesis of all of this. And then, as you know, my story, and many of the folks watching might as well, I was a chief HR officer. And then on May 14th, I went into work and went into a meeting, and my job was eliminated. And I get it. It was a result of COVID. The business I worked for was hit very, very hard. And business leaders, CEOs, COOs, CFOs, they have to make really tough decisions. And in this case, it was, do we keep the doors open and employ as many people as possible and take out certain positions to allow that to happen? And I get it. I wasn't thrilled, but I got it and I understood it. And so I also think that the universe kind of pushed me a little bit to launch what I had been planning to do down the road. So here we are, and I put pen to paper, and the 5 imperatives were born, and now I get to be on great shows like this.
Oh my, oh my. Well, Barbie, first of all, I want to say how I admire uh, that you have just in a couple of minutes given us the background, but much more importantly, you've given us a glimpse into who you are, and you've given us an understanding that what you created really came from you assessing the gaps in a real life and realizing that there's solution. But many of us lack the understanding on what the strategy is look like, just like the lady you were talking, your colleague that you were talking about. Right. How can I get more strategic? What can help me to move forward? How can I get out of this race of just doing the tactical tasks constantly? And this is really a lot of what you're mentioning is either make it or break it, because I've seen many phenomenal women that I've met on this platform that have a high education. They have bachelor's, some of them have master's degree, yet they stay in the entry position role for a decade. And that is just, it makes my insides twirl because I say, gosh, you are so bright. You're so phenomenal. There is something that, holds you back. And I'm happy. I'm so happy that you are here today to really give us a glimpse and some help, practical advice in what can help us all to move forward to becoming more strategic and become a thought leader. Let's dive into first one.
Let's do it. So the imperatives were born because at the one example I shared, but I recognized that as I wanted to help upskill members of my team, myself, or colleagues who would reach out, the only training that was really available is compliance-based. There are some others, and there's more springing up, but most of the training out there and the certifications for folks within the HR space are centered around compliance. And compliance is but a fraction of what we do. And some folks within HR don't really even touch compliance. And in the 90% of the work we do is not compliance based. And yes, you need that foundation. I'm not in any way diminishing the need for those certifications. So SHRM, don't come after me. HRCI, don't come after me, right? I myself have, my SPHR and all that good stuff. But that's kind of the point of entry. That's your foundation. But then where do you take it? So the 5 imperatives, and the first one, and they're all so interrelated, but the first one is be a business leader first and an HR leader second. And as I have had this conversation with folks over the past several months, I've had the question, is this just for HR folks? And the reality is no, it really does apply to anyone who has a functional specialty.
Yes.
In this conversation, as in many of my conversations, I do approach it through the lens of HR because that's my experience, but they are pretty universally applicable to work in general, because as we are all serving our businesses, whether you're in HR, marketing, finance, sales, or what have you,
Logistics,
anything,
operations,
you have
anything
to
you think of.
understand the business you serve.
Yes.
And you have to understand it more than just the boilerplate, right? A lot of HR folks know the boilerplate because maybe they're in TA and they get that. But this one really came to life when I was addressing a team of HR practitioners. They had all worked for the company for at least 6 months or more. 6 months is plenty of time to know some of this information. And I asked, what's your annual EBITDA goal? What's your revenue? Who are your top 5 competitors? Who are your top 5 customers? What does your CEO look at every day to determine whether or not you're winning or losing? What metrics are imperative to the financial health of this organization? What's the number one product this company produces? And who buys it? And what do they do with it? And how long does it take to make that? What's the sales pipeline look like? How long has our average customer been a customer? What percentage of business does our top customer give us? These are basic business questions that every HR person should be able to answer off the top of their head.
Oh my, hold on. Let me pause on this because I think you can make a brochure or a free download PDF report with just those questions.
Right. Well, we're recording this. So
Barbie, because you think that those are simple questions and you think that I believe many of people need to be aware while they're as running the business, aware of the statics, but many may think, well, this is above my pay grade. This is not something that I must be interested in. I'm just doing this little work, this administrative work, especially for entry people. If you're an analyst, if you're a specialist, if you're just doing some administrative analysis and then you're providing it to others to make decisions, do you believe that these are the information and those are the questions that they must ask?
I do.
I agree.
That anybody within an organization should know this. That's how you learn about your business. And how do you know if you're adding value if those things aren't changing, right? And I read an article, this was several years ago, and the CEO of one of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, so billions of dollars a year. This gentleman, he came into his office, and every day on a monitor in his office, it would show red or green on 3 metrics. And that's what he looked at every day to determine if they had a good day the day before or not. Were they hitting their numbers? Well, we need to know that. We need to understand what that is, because everything we do in some way rolls up to impact those metrics.
Yes.
And I say this often. I think HR people, especially HR people, I think more than even some of the other departments, we get very insulated and we start to live in I call it our HR bubble. And I get a certain amount of that because a lot of what we're exposed to is confidential information. We can't share it with others. So we do get very protective of some of the information and data we have, right? That is understandable when you're talking about someone's personal information, their performance, whatever it is that's considered confidential. But that doesn't prohibit you from enmeshing yourself and immersing yourself into the other areas of your business. And when I have gone out and spoken with CEOs and CFOs and COOs and business leaders in general and asked them, what's the biggest gap you see within HR right now? This tends to be it. They don't understand our business. They don't understand why we're doing the things we're doing day in and day out. So HR folks, we have got to become business leaders first. We continue to say we want a seat at the table. I can tell you, I have seen over and over and over again, HR folks being invited to the table, but when they get there, they don't know how to have a conversation because they don't know this information. So they're not invited back. So now it's on you, right? You were invited, you got the seat, but you lost it because there was no respect for you as a business leader. And if you can't add value to that conversation, why are you there?
Yes. Oh my, this is so Just first one is
That's just the first one.
just the first one is so in depth, Barbie. I love it. And in my space, it is my background is global HR and global mobility. And this conversation is also discussed even with the partners that are providing relocation services. Is discussed that a lot of global mobility folks, they're just sitting there shuffling the papers. And even though when they're given a seat at the table, maybe sometimes we're not equipped or positioned or understand. Although I think that what we are talking about today is really a good foundation to just start thinking, start asking questions. If you are in a position where you're a specialist and you have 3 layers above you, ask your manager. If the manager is not willing to share, ask the director. If the director is not willing to share, ask your chief people officer. If your chief people officer is not willing, go and start talking to the leaders of the different departments. Go reach out to your CEO and say, can I have a 15 minutes of mentorship? Ask questions. Don't be hesitant, because some people may not be willing to share, but most of the people, they do want you to succeed. They do want to share that information. They want you to understand and have a clarity where the business is going and how, as HR people, we can serve that business better. I love it, Barbie.
Absolutely. And you may find that you ask people and it's not that they don't want to share, but perhaps they don't know.
Yes.
And I love that your encouragement, keep asking.
Yes.
There's not a CFO out there who's not going to know the answer to most of those questions. And I would say 99% of them would welcome an HR person asking, because they're going to recognize that you're in it for the right reasons and you're there to learn.
Yeah.
So I think that's incredibly important. Asking is the first step, right?
I love
Asking
it.
the question.
I love
the
it.
second imperative is be agile and adaptable, or have agility and adaptability. And now in the time of COVID, more than ever, I think this one has been brought to life for many of us. Initially, when agility and adaptability came to play in my 5 imperatives, it was more about us stop being the HR police. We have got to stop anchoring ourselves to simply being the policy police out there. And while we have a hand in crafting policy and guidelines, we need that, right? Again, it goes back to the foundation, but it is not our sole purpose. And I've had this conversation for years with HR folks, especially I find HR teams that have been in existence for many, many years, or in industries that have been around for more than 20 years. There's a perception that excellent customer service means spoon feeding our employees. And I challenge that, because spoon feeding employees is not excellent customer service. And by dictating and being incredibly prescriptive with each and every element of what you do, you are binding the hands of your leaders from taking ownership of leading their teams. So we have got to back off of this policy stronghold that many organizations have and allow our leaders to lead. Yes, we need guidelines. We need compliance from a legal perspective. So we need to make sure that we're working in partnership with our legal teams. But I can give you an example. And this happened just several months ago, as a matter of fact. I was asked over and over and over again for a work from home policy. And I couldn't really understand. What do you mean a work from home policy? What are you asking me for? And this went on for months. I continued to be asked, we need a work from home policy. And I finally said, stop. What is it that you are looking for? Do you really mean a policy, or are you asking me for work from home guidelines? Because work from home guidelines make a lot of sense to me. Work from home guidelines would be, you must have this minimum bandwidth to be able to support the technology necessary to work from home. You must have a dedicated quiet space within your home to work, with a door that shuts so that you don't have constant interruptions. You must have a backdrop that is appropriate, that's not, offensive in any way. you must understand that if you have children at home, it is not an opportunity to have a daycare, right? Your children need to be cared for outside of you working. These are the guidelines as far as work from home, but a policy, that's a little much, right? And I think when you have an organization that is so married and so committed to having prescriptive policies where they want to be able to check the box, that's a big sign that you've got a lack of trust within your culture, right? Because when you see that, in my experience, I should say, when I've seen that, that's because those people leaders want to be able to say, well, I didn't make that decision. That's HR's policy, right? They have then divested themselves of ownership and responsibility, and then they're going to play the us versus them game. So HR folks, stop it. Don't allow it to happen to you. Understand the need for the policies that you must have, and that's something that you and your legal teams can come up with. And outside of that, I believe that as fluid and flexible an organization as you can have, the better, because situations are different. We also want to make sure that when we do craft the policies we need, that we are crafting them for the majority of our people and not for the outliers. This is another thing that I have seen HR teams get paralyzed with.
Yes.
Is that they try to solve for each and every possible outcome from a policy infraction, right? So an attendance policy, as an example. So if somebody misses this, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And if they do this, then this happens, and this happens, and this happens. And I'm like, guys, stop the madness. 90% of our employees are solid, and they come to work, they do a good job, they want to be here. And we cannot craft a policy for the 10% of the people who don't want to be here. We need to manage their performance, manage their attendance, and allow the other people the flexibility to own their work time.
Yes, I agree.
Stop being so rigid about things.
Yep. We have some comments, Barbie, here. We have some comments from Rajat saying, at times I have found traditional HR to be an obstacle to progress and unwilling to tackle issues head on, or worse, even take sides. Elena is saying, thanks for incredible bounce back story, Barbie. The universe gives you the push to take that you need to take you where you need to go. This is so true. Yes, and we have Monica saying, unfortunately, some CEOs do not understand how important HR cooperation is with other business units of the company. So they need someone like Barbie to explain it to them. So Barbie, that's exactly what you're doing. I think your message is not just for HR practitioners, but I also believe that because you work with many leaders and, you have the voice to educate both sides, because from the HR standpoint, yes, we can all do better as HR practitioners to improve and to progress. And yet from the business leadership and business executives, I think there needs to be that stigma almost destroyed in a way that HR is just there, to hoard information and things like that, and invite the HR team and practitioners into important conversations. So I love it, Barbie. So number one is become business leader first. Yes. Number two is agility and adaptability. How about number three?
Yes. Number three is influence and inform. I fundamentally believe that HR's principal function is to be there to help influence and inform decisions for our businesses. And we do that, in my opinion, we have got to leverage three key elements in making these and influencing these decisions, right? So we have to use data. We have to get better, HR folks, at using data. We have to make sure our data is accurate, it's been verified, we've audited it, and that it is consistent. So we have to use data. We have to rely on our experience, whether it's our experience within the organization we are working, what is the culture of this company? What will and won't work here? What did I experience at my last company that I can bring with me? So our experience in general, and then our intuition. Our intuition is there for a reason. those little voices, those little hairs that stand up on the back of your head, that gut feeling you get, all of that is there for a reason. And it's there to give you a sign, right? It's you're on the wrong path. You're going down the wrong path. This is a slippery slope. You know better. Don't acquiesce just because you're feeling pressure, or you get the chills because you know you're on the right path, right? You know, you can interpret those signals. And by using those three elements, data, experience, and intuition, you're going to be much better prepared to help influence decisions and inform decisions for your leaders. It's incredibly important. And Jenna, you said one thing that I want to touch on, and I think this, all the elements are reflected in this, but I think influence and inform, and then our next one are big when it comes to this. One of our listeners said we're seen as obstacles, and it's absolutely true. And it's funny, and you mentioned that I'm building the Business of HR community, and I want to invite all of you who are watching to join. It's free. And one of the things I talk about and have had questions about is we have business people going around us. And then we're there as the cleanup crew because they went around us. They didn't come to us on the front end. They went and they executed X, Y, and Z. Now it's breaking down and we have to come in and clean it. How do I fix that? And the very first thing I would instruct and encourage you to do is go to the source. Go to the person who went around you and ask them why. Why did you not come to me first? And be direct about it. Be intentional and say, do you perceive me personally as an individual contributor and HR as a department? Do you perceive us to be an obstacle or a partner? And ask them with the best intentions. Ask them so that you can learn. Ask them with the intention to learn, not to fight, right? I honestly want to know. And if you see me or this department as an obstacle or a barrier, help me understand why and how can we work through it. Because what they don't often understand is the cleanup work is it takes twice as long. We have to pull in legal.
Yes.
We have to undo it. It
Yes.
creates a really poor employee experience because they've made promises that now can't be fulfilled. And now you're the bad guy because HR comes in and says, no, you can't do it. So it creates this whole spiral of crazy that had they come to you on the front end could have been avoided. But you've got to be brave enough to ask them why they're not coming to you. You've got to be humble enough to go into that conversation and say, you know, I recognize I might be the reason you didn't come to me. You see me as a barrier. You see me as an obstacle. Let's talk through that because I don't want that to be the case.
I love it.
You've got to be vulnerable in order to do that.
I agree.
So that's influence and inform. The next
I agree. I agree, Barbie. I just wanted to bounce back a couple things that I've heard that I believe are so important. It is admitting, and it is easy sometimes to say than to do.
Yes, it is.
Because there is a sense of threat to yourself when you open up vulnerably like this, right? Our initial, I say, inclination or automatic inclination is to protect, to guard yourself. And it works, I think, both ways, whether you discuss it with someone who is above your level or below your level. If you guard yourself, if you have this distance between and you think, oh my gosh, I'm threatened, it is a poor foundation to build relationship, trust, and collaboration. When you open up and show your vulnerability and say, I realize this happened. I know that there might be some of the elements I need to improve on. Let's have a discussion, and start asking curious questions from the place where you really want to learn. This can truly make tremendous progress, not just in your effectiveness and what you could do going forward for the business or for your team, but more importantly, it can create a trust in the relationships that is really going to be so solid that can be a great foundation for future successes for either you or those that you work with.
Absolutely. And people will appreciate you coming to them with, drop the armor, just go to them honestly and say, I'm really working on this and I'm incredibly frustrated because this continues to happen. And I believe you're going about it with the best intentions. I don't believe that you're setting out to make my life crazy, but that's what's happening. So how can we stop that? Because clearly I'm doing something and this is the result. So what can you do?
Yes. Number
And
4.
taking ownership, that's how you get there, right?
I love
So,
it.
Number 4 is practical solutions.
Yes.
When you have these conversations with your business leaders, don't be surprised if you hear their frustration is that HR is so focused on HR that they forget why they're there. And we've got to start bringing practical solutions to our businesses. We've got to start getting a little bit out of the pie in the sky and stop thinking about all of the beautiful flowery things that are fun, but we're more than event planners. We're not here to throw the birthday celebrations every month. We may get pulled into that, but that's not our sole purpose, right? So we've got to look at what are the gaps right now that my business needs filled. Is it something within the learning space? Is it something within systems? Do we have a labor planning issue? Do we have a cultural issue? And what is it that's driving that? We've got to start root causing the problems and then bringing forward practical solutions. So sometimes that means it's not software, it's not technology, right? And HR used to be the last, I think, frontier from a technology perspective, right?
Yes.
Now we are inundated with technology.
Yes.
And there are amazing HR technologies out there. So again, please don't come at me and say I don't like HR tech, because I do. But I also believe that if you're not looking at the issues from what are the people you're facing, what are the process issues that are happening, and then what are the systems that could help you solve it. And if you go straight to the systems, all you're doing is exacerbating the problems you have. So practicality says, this really seems like it's a collaboration issue. This really seems like it's because we're relying on email versus an actual process that could be audited. Perhaps there's a tool out there that we could create an HR ticketing system with, so that every time an employee has a question for HR, they submit it just like IT. So it's date and time stamped so that we can audit instead of relying on emails that get lost. That's a practical solution that has a very low price tag to fix. All it takes is some critical thinking to root cause the problem versus the symptom, and then you can create it, right? I've done that multiple times in organizations where so much of the noise was because there was no consolidated intake process for employees to communicate with HR.
Yes.
So it was the drive-by conversations or the emails. Well, if you're
or a sticker on the table.
Right. And how can you find out?
Now is a Skype message.
Right. And you can't audit to know if it's been followed up on or what the resolution was. So there are simple, practical solutions out there, and we've got to start thinking that way. We also have to make sure that we go to our business leaders and say, does this look like something that could help solve a problem for you? Or better yet, what are you struggling with that you feel like I could help partner to fix? What are the gaps in the people space that are important to you, business leader?
Yes.
And then let's talk about it. Because here's what my data is telling me is an issue. Does that resonate with you? Because if it does, great, we're onto something. If it doesn't, let me bring this to your attention so that we can discuss it. So we've got to have practical solutions for our businesses and business leaders.
Yes, this is good. Barbie, I just wanted to touch on something you mentioned that I believe is also important. And that relates to HR practitioners, as well as we said, this conversation is rounded around HR. However, the application or the framework can be adapted by anybody, any kind of industry, any kind of background. And something that you touched on is very important, is practical solutions that are rooted on what the problem is and how can I find the solution that's going to solve that problem for my organization, for my team, for my business. If you come to work, and you, let's say right now we don't physically come to work, we connect at work, right? But if you come and every day you have a way, let me be more resourceful, let me provide more tactical resources and solutions, let me know what the bigger problems are and how can I contribute to resolving them. I think that would definitely elevate you from just being executing tasks to start thinking, even elevating your viewpoint to being more strategy driven. So I love that you've given that to us. And Barbie, the fifth one.
The fifth one is courage. And I know especially if you follow Brene Brown and her work, courage, this word is coming up a lot lately. So I certainly don't want to overuse it. But I truly do believe that everything we do within the people space takes courage, because we are not talking about boxes or widgets or an inanimate object. Everything we do touches people in some way or another.
Yes.
And it takes courage to have these conversations. It takes courage to step back and acknowledge that perhaps you're part of the problem. It takes courage to challenge your leaders all the way to the CEO when you see someone is behaving outside of their integrity, or they're not living the values or the behaviors of your organization. It takes courage to step forward and say, I think we're going down the wrong path. So everything we do is surrounded by this element of courage, which is also underpinned by trust. If you don't have trust in your leadership, in your culture, in yourself, none of these elements and imperatives are actually going to work for you, because you've got to trust yourself enough to know that I'm going to get it right 90% of the time, maybe 99% of the time, but I'm going to make mistakes. And I'm okay with that, because I will learn from them. And I trust that the folks I work with, that those individuals in my sphere will understand that those times I make mistakes are all in an effort to become better, to learn more, to create something amazing. And we can then apply our learnings to move forward. So I am a huge believer that it takes courage to work in the HR space. There's nothing easy about what we do. There really isn't, because everybody thinks they get a voice, right? And they do. But it's very interesting to me, because if you think about it, no other department, when they're crafting initiatives or programs, has to think about every other employee within the company, but we do. So, if sales rolls out a new sales program, they're focused on the customer. If finance rolls out a new, AP program, they're worried about the financial implications. But everything we do touches every employee for the most part. So when we succeed, that's great. But when we fail, everybody knows it. So it takes courage to put yourself out there to say, I'm willing to do this, knowing that I'm not going to hit a home run every time, but I'm damn sure going to take my turn at bat and do the best I can. And that's all we can ask for. So that's the fifth one, is courage.
I really see how impactful this framework and this 5 imperative can be to anybody that want to become a thought leader and also can transform their career from just being tactical to strategies, because what you've outlined is almost 5 most important steps that you need to embrace, that you need to know, that seeing those steps and also executing on those steps can truly bring you to the next level, can truly have you shine and stand out. Because on the last point, Barbie, I think it is easy for each one of us to retreat and to be fearful and to think, what if, right? Or I'm just doing my duty. But embracing courage, to me, it sounds that it's almost being rooted in you knowing your worth, and you knowing your ability to figure things out, and you being open enough to understand that yes, there's going to be some mistakes, and there's some mismatches, yet you can overcome them, and you can make a big difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. You said that beautifully. And I 100% agree. The way we go about this is it means so much, right? Our intention sets the stage, and we're doing this work because we feel strongly about it. We know it's the right work to do, and we go into it expecting that it's not always going to be perfect. It never is, but that's okay. And there has somewhere along the line been created this expectation of perfection within the HR space, and it's not real. It's not real anywhere. It's especially not real when you're talking about people. It's messy. It's complicated. There's not a one size fits all. There's not a silver bullet answer out there. There's not a silver bullet technology out there. If there was, we'd all have it, right? And I say this all the time. Technology does not solve people problems.
Yes.
People solve people problems. So we've got to own it and embrace it, like you said, and just say, okay, it's not always clean and neat. There's not always a beautiful bow to put on it, but we're making iterative progress, and that's what's so important. And that's what I think the 5 imperatives help folks frame up, that you need to be that strategic thought leader, but you have to break it down into tactical elements, and the ability to flex between those two spaces is what will set you apart as a true leader within the HR space, but as you mentioned, in any space really, because you can't solely live in strategy, because then you're going to lose credibility, and you can't live in the weeds of tactical administrative execution, because then you're not going to move it forward. So you've got to be able to flex fluidly between the two, and begin with the end in mind, understand your goal, and then back into it and break it into manageable segments so that you can move it forward. And I'm hoping that these imperatives help folks kind of set their brain around how to do that a little bit better than maybe they've done it before.
I absolutely agree that it has been a value. And if it has been a value, please let us know. Drop a heart, give us a thumbs up, or, let us know in the comments. And Rajat is saying, it would be useful to post a list of 5 imperatives. And I will post them later, but we will repeat them again. Number 1 is being a business leader first. Barbie, what's the second one?
The second one is to be agile and adaptable, or agility and adaptability. No more HR
I think
policy police.
Number 3 is inform and influence.
Yes.
Number 4, Barbie.
Number 4 is practical solutions.
And number 5, courage.
Yes.
So those are simple concepts or simple framework that you may think. But as we unfolded it today during our conversation, that you can embrace this framework, and you can look at your actions, and you can look at your thinking patterns, more importantly than just your actions, your thinking patterns, because what you think, what you tell yourself is going to manifest in what you speak and what you do. So your thinking patterns would need to be changed for you to transition, because it is not as maybe as smart you are, or how much degree or certifications you have, which is awesome. It is your thinking that need to be transformed in order for you to transition to the next level.
Absolutely. You hit it right on the head.
Yes. And we have a couple more notes here. Elena is saying, thank you, Barbie, for articulating the scope and weight of that HR leaders do every day. Seeking perfection will prevent us from having the courage to be better. I agree, Elena. And Ligny Mimi saying, Barbie, thank you so much for your willingness to share the information. I'm not an HR, but I can and will most definitely be able to use these imperatives in my area.
Good.
That is phenomenal. Barbie, and before we close out, I just wanted to ask you to give us some couple more tips or some advice as we part to our viewers and listeners that can help them implement those imperatives and be successful.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I think it's important that we understand teams. So, did I break up there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so we want to make sure we are approaching the work we do collaboratively. We want to make sure that we are approaching the work we do with the best intention for the organization, and that we treat people the way people deserve to be treated. One phrase I use a lot is, we don't hang our humanity at the door when we walk into work. And these imperatives are fantastic, and they can really help you with a framework on how to accomplish an awful lot. But we also have to always remember the lens that we are working with people, and they're whole people. And one of the other elements within HR that I think we get hung up on is, and it goes back to that whole spoon feeding thing, is that we tend to see people, once we are in the employer-employee relationship, we see them as these one-dimensional beings of employees. And we've got to strip that away, because they are whole people. They are multi-dimensional people. And spoon feeding them is not helping them at all. You cannot convince me that your employees are not out there online banking, ordering from Amazon, setting up accounts, doing all of their personal business online every day. And yet, when it comes to benefits or payroll, they can't figure out how to pick up the phone and make a call. They want HR to do it for them. You guys have got to stop it. Stop. Empower them, give them the contact information, and say, here's who you call. Here's how you handle that. And get yourself out of the middle of that relationship. Their relationship with their insurance company is their relationship, not yours, right? Their relationship, if there's a payroll issue, they need to pick up the phone and call your payroll provider and allow that provider to do the work you're paying them to do. Get yourself out of those administrative tactical spaces and allow those employees to be self-sufficient. I know it's hard at first, because we have confused customer service with hand holding and spoon feeding, but we've got to break that chain.
This is powerful. I love, Barbie, that your focus is to empower others, be empowered,
Yes.
to help others feel empowered to drive themselves to success and finding the solutions. And this is truly an important ability to do that. Barbie, thank you so much for joining today. And although the technology was not playing quite in our favor, I think this has been a phenomenal value pack episode. I appreciate your time spending with us today.
It was my honor to be here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yes, and I believe that when we share our leadership experiences, when we help understanding new thoughts, new frameworks, we can grow, we can develop, we can take the ownership of our own growth and successes, and we can help each other to feel empowered. Thus, we can change this world to be a better place. Thank you so much for joining today, and have a fantastic week ahead.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye. All right.